All right, we're back. Cool. Change of wardrobe because it's getting a little steamy in here, but that won't stop us from moving forward. So where are we? We've got our app delegate. We've set up a window. We've got a staff picks view controller, which is a subclass of UI view controller, and it's yellow. Big moves. So let us build on top of this. What is the next step? The next step is to add a table view or list view to our view controller. And we're going to do that in Interface Builder, but there are going to be a number of things that we need to do in code to get this table view to actually display something. So we're going to get into that, and we're going to build on this in stages. At first, it's probably just going to display a list of strings that we hard code. We're going to evolve that to display something a little bit more interesting. And eventually, the holy grail is we're going to request some information from Vimeo's Staff Picks API and render that. So we're going to render a list of metadata about 25 videos that we get back from the API. So we've got a long road ahead of us. Not that long. It's going to be all right. Open up the or click on the staff picks view controller.xib, and we're going to see this little canvas object here. And click up here to expose this panel of utilities. And this is a zone that we use frequently when we are working with Interface Builder. Interface Builder is it is what it sounds like. It's a tool, really powerful tool that lives within Xcode that allows us to build interfaces. So what we have right now is just a view object. This is the view that our view controller owns. And we're going to build some things on top of it. What specifically are we going to do? We're going to roll down into this little object library here, and we're going to search for UI table view. And we're going to, that will filter the results, right? That will show us, what are the things that are related to table views. And we're going to click and drag a table view onto our view. And you'll see it will automatically size and kind of snap into place with these blue dotted lines. Let it go. Just drag and drop it right there. This is us adding a table view to our UI view controller. But we also need to specify some things about how our table view is laid out on the view controller's view. So we're going to use something called auto layout. And again, worth noting, we're going to make this app that does some pretty interesting stuff that involves foundational concepts. But in doing so, we're going to touch on 7,000 other concepts that we can't go into, or this would be like a 6-month class. So I encourage you, anytime that you hear a term that we don't go into in enough depth, that you're unfamiliar with or curious about, write something in the forums, write to us and ask about it. Email me personally, contact somebody at 1 month, ask your peers, Google it. There's tons of information out there. So anyway, we're going to use something called auto layout, which is a powerful mechanism for determining how views are laid out inside of their super views and with respect to their peers or their neighboring views. So if I click on this table view, and again, this table view could be any size within our view. I'll undo. If I click on that and I interact with these three guys down here, this is our zone, for the most part, for adding what are called auto layout constraints. So auto layout is a system that kind of is what it says. It automatically lays out views when your view appears on an iPhone 4 screen or a 5 screen or a 6 or 6 Plus or an iPad screen or even a watch screen. And it does so. It automatically lays these things out by using what are called constraints. And constraints are things that we set up for individual views that constrain how the system lays that view out on screen. So we're going to constrain this table view with respect to its super view, the view controller's view, in a particular way. Pretty simple. We're going to click these four little guys here. And in doing so, we're constraining, or this is just a little visual brief interface for saying, I want the view controller's top, left, right, the table view's top, left, right, and bottom to be pinned to the top, left, right, and bottom of its super view. And once I click these and they're red and we have 0 here because we want it to hug the edge with 0 pixels or point space, hit add 4 constraints. And you're not going to see much happen, but what you will see happen will be in this ruler size inspector. You'll see that this class now, this table view, now has 4 constraints in the constraint section. One is trailing space to super view, leading space, bottom space, top space. And if you hit edit, you'll see that that space is 0. You can play around with these a little bit, and I encourage you to do so. Like if you were to, let's say, click on your view, change the view's background color from white to this like salmon color, click on your table view and go to the size inspector and then say, let's change the top space from 0 to like 30 and hit enter. You'll see the view reconfigure itself to reflect the change that you've just made to the top constraint, which says your table view is now 30 points from the top of its super view, which means that you can see a little bit of the super view peeking above the table view. Let's set that back to 0. We can leave the view controller's view to this salmon color if we want to. Sometimes I do that. I'll make different views, multicolors because it's easy for me to see if something's wrong. It might be a little harder to see if it's white on white. Anyway, so that's it for right now. We've learned how to add a table view, or really it's the same process for any object in this object library here, of which there are many you can see. We've learned how to add that to the canvas and how to set up some basic constraints for this particular view. So let's hit the play button to build and launch our app. And we see one issue here. We don't actually see our table view. So this is an error with how we've set up our staff picks view controller here. And let's see if Xcode will do us some favors. It's not doing us any favors. All right, hold on one second. Let's fix this issue. All right, so this is a little bit frustrating because, and this is sort of an evidence of the development of Swift, or the continuing development of Swift, and not being like a completely stable language. Same thing with the compiler. In Objective-C, you do not need to specify the nib name, or the interface builder file name, when you're instantiating a view controller that you've subclassed and included a nib file for. So this would appropriately reference our interface builder file. However, with Swift, that's not possible. We need to provide a little bit more information and add the nib name and the bundle. And if Xcode was being good to us, it would, instead of just showing us one constructor option in this drop-down list here, it would show us indeed that there is another constructor available to us, which looks exactly like this, which is a constructor that takes two arguments. One is a nib name, a string, like the name of the nib file that we have here, or the XIB file. And 2 is the bundle, which we can pass as nil because it will default to be the main bundle. So apologies for the misstep here, but this is really evidence of the compiler still evolving and not being in parity with the Objective-C compiler, and also just not doing us any favors in terms of autocomplete. So anyway, in order to resolve the fact that our app still showed a yellow screen instead of our empty table view or white table view, we're going to modify the staff picks controller constructor in this particular way to pass in the nib name. So we're being explicit in saying when you create the staff picks view controller, definitely create it using the staff picks view controller.xib file, which contains our white table view. So if we hit play now or run now, it will load this guy, and then it will display our empty table view, which these names of places in California are just sort of a thing that only shows up inside of Interface Builder. And we'll also see now that our view background color, yellow color, doesn't actually do anything because our table view is completely obscuring it, and that's exactly what we want. So we can get rid of this line, no problem, and we're back to a totally blank slate view controller whose view is really being determined by the contents of this interface builder file, which is a pretty powerful concept. So what are we going to do next? I mean, we've got this blank list view. Let's add some things to this list. So what we're going to do next is learn how to really set up in code and a little bit in Interface Builder our table view, how to make it render things on screen.